Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA front office show. It's Friday. You know what that means.
Front Office Friday!
Let's go. Front Office Friday is here. We're talking the latest around the NBA. We're going to talk a little bit about Team USA takes on Puerto Rico tomorrow. News, rumors, signings, all that kind of stuff. Keith, I'm excited. Let's kick off this weekend.
Yeah, I'm excited too, man. It's been today was weird. We talked earlier and we're like, all right, I think we'll go around this time. And then I got busy doing stuff. And the next thing I know, I looked up and I'm like, oh crap, it's like 12:45. And we're supposed to do a show in 15 minutes. And I'm like, I need 15 extra minutes. I had to stuff a peanut butter and jelly before I could record. Because if I'm recording hungry, it's not going to be good for anybody. We got about a 10-minute show in, and that would have been it.
Hangry Keith will just say, some guys signed contracts, some were guaranteed, some were not.
Yeah.
The end. Have a great weekend.
Yeah. See you Monday.
See you Monday. I'm going. Oh, man. All right. Where do you want to start? Do we want to talk Team USA off the top here?
Yeah, we can.
Team USA playing tomorrow. This has been a lot of fun, Keith, to have NBA players in action this time of year. Normally not something that we get to see. It's been a blast. What do you think of the mindset is of the U.S. heading into that game? I mean, they're already through to the next round. So what do we see from the U.S. in tomorrow's outing?
Yeah, I think Steve Kerr's comments about we want to blow them out. We want to be the number one seed. We want to push. I think that is a little telling maybe of he knows he's got to ask a bit more from the guys. It can't just be, hey, just, show up and just get through the game and we're good. But it can be hard, right? When you kind of know, man, we're already through. There's no home court advantage to play for. At this point, there's no real super matchup advantage to being the number one seed in the knockout rounds or anything. But I think they will push through. I mean, I think as long as they play even semi-seriously, they should win and should win fairly big. It's just going to be, can Puerto Rico make them uncomfortable? Can they get into them defensively? They're really good with ball pressure and those kind of things with the two guards and Alvarado and Waters. They'll be chasing them around the court. They'll make those guys defend them 94 feet. So it's going to be, those will be the big questions. I think this is probably a pretty big Derek White and Drew Holiday game, just from you got to guard the two ball handlers for Puerto Rico. But, they should win and probably win big enough to close it out with the number one seed at the end of the day.
I don't recall. I have to pull up the table, but Puerto Rico, I believe, are they done, or is there something on the line for them in this game?
No, I think they still have a chance. Maybe. Yeah, I mean, if they win, I think they would have a chance. So, but they've got to win.
So they're going to be going all out. This isn't going to be a just kind of run out the clock type of situation for them, even if it is for the U.S. So, again, these games have been a lot of fun, but like you said, this could wind up being a heavy Halliburton, Derek White type of game. Obviously, part of that is chasing around Puerto Rico's small guards, but I do wonder if the U.S. gets up big at some point, if we do see them really take their foot off the gas and those kind of end of the bench guys. Although I guess Joel Embiid was the end of the bench guy last game, and now he's supposed to start this game, but I think the minutes will be spread out even more. We'll see more of those bench guys in action if the U.S. can get out to a big lead and then sustain that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what happens next is, is when it gets like real, right? Because then you're in the knockout phase, and then you have to win there. So that's where it's going to really matter. So we'll see. Right now, this game is a good chance to probably get everybody some minutes, especially if you can turn it into a runaway early, let everybody get out there and go, and then you jump in and get ready to go for the knockout phase in a couple days.
All right, let's go. Oh, 3 Theory. What's up, my guy? 3 Theory. How you doing? Happy to see you here. Let's go here. Regulator asked, any Okoro rumors? So this is the latest from what I've found here. Our pal Jake Fisher had something to say on that. Let me go ahead and share this so everybody can see. There we go. So this is the latest according to Jake Fisher on Isaac Okoro. This is via Fear the Sword. I know there was some reporting about there being a Nets package idea where Okoro would go to Brooklyn and there'll be something with Dorian Finney-Smith going back, but I don't think those talks got really substantial to my understanding. I just don't think it can even happen right now after the salary stuff has all shifted out. I don't think Brooklyn has the room to make that happen. And bringing back Dorian's like 14 million would be challenging for that first apron stuff that we're talking about with Cleveland in general. I think Okoro could very easily take a 1-year qualifying offer. So, Keith, first of all, I'm going to pull up the Cavs salary cap sheet in just a moment here, but do you agree with what Jake's saying here that on both sides, the finances could make it difficult for a Dorian Finney-Smith for Isaac Okoro swap to work?
Yeah, less so on the net side. They've got plenty of clearance. Now their challenges is they're about 2 million under the luxury tax. But if you right now, Finney Smith is 14.9 million. So even if you did a deal where Okoro started at 15 million, you would eliminate any of the first apron issues for the Cavs because they're taking back less than they send out. In that the Nets would get hard capped, but they're fine. It doesn't matter for them. And then they could bring him in and still stay under the hard cap. So now if it's less than that, but if it's less than that, you get to a point where if you're the Cavs, you're like, well, we'll just keep them ourselves. Like there's no reason not to. So I think what he's saying at the end there is right, that $11.8 million qualifying offer, that becomes more and more likely every day that goes by that he signs that. And that's ultimately what happens. And he just sticks in Cleveland.
What do you think? Is that a bad result, neutral for the Cavs if Okoro winds up playing on that $11.8 million qualifying offer, but then would hit free agency the following summer? What do you think about that outcome from Cleveland's perspective?
Yeah, I don't love that result for them, but I also seem to like Okoro more as a player than the Cavs do. I like him as somebody who's gotten better every year. I think he's a pretty good shooter. He can do a little bit with the ball. And I think he's right now their best perimeter defender that they have on this team. So you add all those things together. I don't know why they wouldn't just be trying to lock him up. They've signed everybody else. You might as well sign him too and get him in the fold. But maybe he wants more money than what they're comfortable with. As we said, they've already committed to quite a bit of money moving forward. So we'll see what it looks like, with him. But I think right now, I don't love the idea of him just playing out the year. For this year, it's fine. But then if he moves on, that's tough. So that's the tough thing. Regulator follows up with another question and says, if Okoro, can he be traded if he signs his qualifying offer? He can be, but he gets a no trade clause. He can block any trade because he'd lose his bird rights if he's traded. So that gets pretty complicated there, where he may say, no, I need to retain my bird rights, because even if he's going somewhere that really likes him, he'd probably rather do that via sign and trade right now than losing his bird rights and then having to re-sign with non-bird rights.
So looking at the cap situation here for the Cavs, I mean, they're at almost 160 million in active cap, but they're still pretty well clear of that first apron. If you were to do a deal for Dorian Finney-Smith and bring it back, as long as you're sending out more money in the trade, then you wouldn't even trigger that first apron anyway. But even if you did, they seem to be fairly far below that, unless I'm not doing the math right on that, and the cap hold of Okoro is not worked into that.
Well, if you scroll down a little bit more, there you go.
Yeah.
That should give you what they have. Now, that is a little misleading because here on the site, and we're working on getting this fixed, it doesn't have Okoro's qualifying offer factored in there.
That makes sense then.
But you'd basically replacing that with a little bit more salary for Finney-Smith. So just plug in the 14.9 million for Finney-Smith. They'd be about 2 million under at that point. Okay. So, yeah, it's enough room. But here's the bigger problem for Cleveland. Let's just say it was straight up Okoro for Finney-Smith. They still have a roster spot that they need to fill. That's where it gets to be a little bit challenging. So they'd probably rather do something like, hey, can you take Okoro and Sam Merrill, or Okoro and Craig Porter Jr. or something like that? But for the Nets, they're already at the max roster spots. They're probably not going to want to just eat dead money. So that's where this one could be a little bit more complicated from both sides, just from a roster spot management.
This is the time of year where the actually executing trades is a little bit more difficult because, as you're saying, that there isn't as much roster spot flexibility. If this is July 1st and we're talking about this, then there's plenty of room on a lot of different teams to move around and move parts and everything. But now A lot of those spots have been filled. Teams have guaranteed contracts on their books, and that can make it a little bit more complicated when we're trying to work out what should be a relatively simple deal if we're talking about DFS for Isaac Okoro. Now, I know we talked about it yesterday on the show, but you would rather have Isaac Okoro than Dorian Finney-Smith anyway. So maybe the Cavs would are better off just sticking as is and either coming to terms on a new deal with Okoro or saying, hey, if you want to play the play out the year on the qualifying offer, then let's do that, and then we'll see what's what next summer.
Yeah, and for me, it's nothing against Dorian Finney-Smith. I like
Sure.
him plenty, but I think he's duplicative with what you already get from Dean Wade and George Niang. So if they're going to also be there, you lose the perimeter defense with Okoro. So that's where I would start to say, hey, let's try to find a balancing trade where maybe we can bring in a perimeter defender or something like that too down the line. But I mean, we're getting pretty late in the summertime to be finding things like that. Like there was a point where I said, you know, it could kind of make sense for this Cavs team if they really wanted to take their defense to another level. You could do something where Okoro swaps out with Matisse Thybulle.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, because that's a really nice fit. And I think Okoro's young enough where on a reasonable contract, he can grow with the other young Trailblazers. He doesn't overlap too much. Now, if they said, we see him much more as a backcourt player than a true wing and, can play the three, then that starts to get a little tricky with that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's go here. So Marcus said Nets got to lock in for Cooper Flag.
I think they did.
Yeah, I think they have. First of all, they have, and I mean, look, we talked about this. I know that the Nets are not going to be very good this year, but this offseason was a big win in my book for the Nets. I thought now they've picked a direction. They've got a much brighter future than they had a month ago before they made the Mikal Bridges trade. Now, that being said, how contentious do you think this tank race is going to get? Given that the NBA has tried to flatten out lottery odds and things like that, they instituted the play-in tournament in part to try to make sure that teams were competing all the way through the season or create a situation where more teams are competing through. But now we've got this guy at the top that everybody's going to want to get. And there's other players too that you've talked about, Keith. Are we about to see the resurgence of the tank race this year?
Yeah, a lot of this is going to become, do you feel like you need to get to one or two, or do you feel like, hey, we're okay, even if as long as we're in that top five, like we're going to get a franchise player? Multiple scouts and front office folks that I've talked to have said the top 5 projected guys in the 2025 draft all would have been the number 1 pick in this past draft. So so that's, I mean, you're talking Cooper Flag, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, VJ Edgecombe, and Nolan Traore. Those 5 guys. And then there's a handful of guys behind them that I think could have big years coming up as well. Guys like Liam McNeely's a high-rated recruit. Kaman Malwak is another guy who's somebody that teams are really interested in. He's playing for South Sudan right now in the Olympics, and then will be a freshman at Duke next year. So those guys are guys that teams are pretty interested in because there's just a lot of talent coming in this draft class. So that's where it becomes a little tricky. Now, I've also heard teams say, hey, going all the way to the bottom, look at what's happened to the Pistons. Yeah. They've been the worst team in the league, not even by intentions, like just kind of happened. And 2 years in a row, they had teams jumped them fully and knocked them all the way down to 5th. So there's no like surefire thing. That said, you still want to put yourself in a position where even if only one team jumps, you're only sliding a spot. I think we have, if we look at it right now, we have the Nets, the Pistons to an extent. They're just going to naturally be better. The Hornets to an extent. The Wizards are going to be pretty bad. The Trailblazers are going to be pretty bad. I think Utah has a chance to, let's see what they ultimately do, but they may end up pretty bad. I think all of those teams, and then let's see where teams like Chicago, Toronto, Atlanta, what happens with those guys? Who in the Western Conference just has the Memphis season where it all just falls apart on them and nothing they do goes right? Like all of a sudden we could see this whole thing spiral and we could end up with, by the time we're at like the first of the year, we could have like 6 or 7 teams just actively trying to make sure they are, in the bottom 5 or so of the draft. And anytime we get super excited about crazy tanking, it never quite plays out that way, not out of the jump, but we are going to see teams lining up as best they can.
Yeah, this is like you said, if this is like a 5-player draft, then at least it makes tanking a little bit more tolerable. I do think though, you look at say Chicago, you look at the Bulls, and the word out of Chicago is that they're looking to, while they want to go younger, they want young experience. That's what they're looking for right now. And right or wrong, I know we've been critical of the Bulls for not picking a direction, not fully blowing it up. It feels like that's the direction they are moving now. I think if they could move Zach LaVine right now, they would. The same may be true for Nikola Vucevic. They already moved on from DeMar DeRozan. Did they maximize what they could have gotten for him? No. They should have moved him last season, maybe the season before. Should have moved Andre Drummond. Didn't he? Walked away for nothing. Could have got multiple second rounders for him. It's been a mess. But now they finally picked the direction, and they are building around young experience, guys like Jalen Smith, like Kobe White, players like that they brought in. You bring in Josh Giddey. The Bulls could wind up actually looking really good at the end of this season if they are not one of the just doormats of the league, but they're also not a playoff team either. Let's say they finish at like the eighth worst or something like that. In today's league, the way it is with the lottery odds, they could very easily be a team that's seen as on the rise, have some solid young building blocks, and then hit on one of these top 5 picks in the NBA draft, and off they go. That's, I think, the dream scenario now for a club like Chicago, as well as a few others that we'll talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I think that group of Chicago, Atlanta, Toronto, I'll even include Charlotte there if they're healthy for most of the year. Someone is going to stumble into the 10 seed because they can't all miss the playoffs. And then what's going to be important is what's the distance between them and the tanking teams. Once it becomes clear, all right, we're not going to be in the play-in, so we don't really need to do anything for that. Can we lose enough to catch the teams at the bottom? Or are we better off, Larry, let's put it into this, trying to make a play-in tournament run. And that's going to matter. The Bulls have a protected pick to worry about too. So that could be a whole thing with them. So that's where, sometimes we have to kind of step back, look at, all right, are they trying to preserve a pick? Are they trying to do X, Y, and Z to make sure that we're seeing things the right way? But yeah, it's going to be, there's going to be, by the trade deadline at the latest, there's going to be some absolutely egregious tanking happening because those guys are also good. We had somebody say, let me see if I can find it. I was from Regulator again. Ace Bailey is going to be the better player. Cooper Flagg is the next AK-47. Cooper's a little bit more athletic, but not quite as long as Andre Karolinko. At least that's what I've observed. And I've seen Cooper Flagg play a lot. Because he played at Montverde, and that's right down the road from me. So I've seen him play quite a bit, but I'm not going to argue with the first part. Ace Bailey may turn out to be the better player. He's going to be really, really good too. I mean, we're kind of splitting hairs a year out. So let's see, where we go. Let's see what this season brings. But it's going to be great watching these guys really kind of go into this position to see what this looks like.
All right, let's go here. If Ayton never makes the All-Star team, okay, which I think is a fairly likely occurrence here, before his contract is up, what would be the max salary for him? Like, what would Portland be willing to pay to keep him? I love the guy. Portland would love to keep him long term if he's paid under $45 million per year. I mean, like there's sub all-star guys that are still going to get a lot of money. Those guys that are that tier below, or maybe they were just in a packed conference that really should have been all-star players, and they just, they're of that caliber, but they just happened to be in the wrong situation. They didn't make the team. I don't know if DeAndre Ayton really fits that category. So I would think if the goal is to keep him under $45 million, that sounds pretty reasonable, even if he is on a deal right now that's paying him $34 million and the cap is rising. It's going to be $35 million next season. I still think that should be well within the realm of possibility, at least in my opinion, unless I'm underrating DeAndre Ayton here.
No, I'm with you. I think if we get to 2026 and then what you're probably looking to do is next year, you're probably looking in 2025, you're probably looking to extend him if he's playing well enough, but you're going to extend him on far less than the max value. You're like, for me, something around what Jared Allen just got makes sense. Something around the 30 million range. Maybe you could go to 35 if he's having a really good year this year. And, if he's not quite an all-star, but just below that tier, maybe you could go up to 35, because that's a well below max salary with where the max salaries are going. But yeah, I agree. I would not give him anything approaching another max again, because here's your challenge. And I'm glad you pulled up the Spot Track cap sheet. That year he's a free agent, and it would be the first year of a new contract. Shaden Sharp will be going into whatever his new year is. You'll have 1 year left of Scoot Henderson on the rookie scale. You're going to be getting into other guys need paid, and that's where you have to be careful with the guys already on the roster.
Apple asks, with Klingon, why would the Blazers want to keep him? Why would you want to keep
That's also
Deandre
a
Ayton?
fair question.
Yeah, maybe.
I think their hope is that over the next 2 years, Ayton plays well enough to up his trade value, that you can move him by the trade deadline of 2026. So you can move him like basically a year and a half from now, get him moved off to another team, and then just Klingon takes the role from there.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to this one real quick.
Sure.
Calvin asked, why hasn't Kennard been signed? And then followed up, could Boston sign him? No, Boston can't sign anybody that's not a minimum player. They are way over the second apron, but Kennard's been signed. He re-signed with the Grizzlies for $11 million.
Yep. And we talked about that the other day on the show. A few other little signings, the rumors that are out there right now, the Sixers interested in signing Davis Bertans, the Marcus Morris, maybe to the Cavs or the Sixers. Again, the Sixers are going to try to add some shooting, some floor spacing to the end of their roster. Do either one of those mean much to you, particularly in light of both of them being connected to the Sixers?
Yeah, I mean, I like Morris's versatility. I just don't know how much he actually has left in the tank. So because of that reason, I feel like you get more surety with Bertans. At least you know he's going to shoot the ball well. Can't do much else, but at least he'll come out and shoot it. So I'd probably go that direction. I don't know that they need to be going for real like, oh man, we need Morris because we might need him to play 30 minutes a night at some point, and Bertans can't do that. I completely agree. Bertans can't do that, but if you're in a position where Morris is having to do it, things have probably gone really wrong for you, and it's probably not a great thing. So, but either one would be a pretty good signing for them.
BC asked me, Lakers Nation live tonight. Not tonight, but this afternoon. We'll do a fun Friday this afternoon, 2:00 Pacific time. We'll do Lakers Nation. I know I'm going to have Ron Gutterman with me and maybe more. So we'll see.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, should be fun. Should be a good time. All right. Any other news that you want to get into here? I'm just taking a peek.
I'm just running through right now. No, not really. There was some TV stuff about Diamond Sports Group. Might be dropping the broadcasts for the Mavericks, Pistons, Grizzlies, Pelicans, and Thunder. It's unclear what would happen with those. We saw the Jazz and the Suns went to free over-the-air models. That did definitely cost everyone some money because that's less money coming in to the NBA pool. But Diamond's in a mess. They're still working through bankruptcy proceedings. There's a thought that what could happen with those five. This was who Sports Business Journal had this. One of the things that they speculated on is, could Amazon step up and buy the local rights and then go forward with those guys, and then just like you would have to probably subscribe somehow to Amazon to get them, or Amazon may make them available within the local market or something like that. If you're League Pass, you'll still get it somehow one way or the other, but just more stuff happening, right? It's going to be more things going on where we don't really know what to fully expect with the local TV deals. The national deal is, let's call it done. I know the TNT fight is out there right now with Warner Brothers Discovery, but as far as we know, we're in a spot where it is, it's how do I put it? It's the local ones are the ones that are real messy and could continue to be that way for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was your thought? Because that happened while I was on vacation. the news came out that I believe it's Warner said, "Oh no, we did match the Amazon offer.
Yep.
We contend that we did match that offer." Amazon, the NBA said the offer was not matched, and we're going with Amazon. Clearly, the NBA wants to go that direction. How messy is that whole situation going to get? That's yikes. I mean, to me, this seems like it's destined to head to court where they're going to define what the word match means.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's be honest too. Neither, no, actually, no, I was going to say neither the NBA nor Warner, but Amazon, none of them want this going to court, because what will happen is you'll have discovery done, and then whatever numbers they say they have for subscribers, they're going to have to put in like, they're going to have to give up the real numbers. And then at that point, if like, let's say somebody's been saying, oh, we have 200 million subscribers, and it comes out that we have more like 50, all of a sudden a whole lot of other things can go completely wrong there. So that's where nobody wants that. So what I think you're going to see is they're going to keep pushing on this. They have already filed legal action. So they've started the legal proceeding, meaning Warner against the NBA saying we did match. They're declining, that the NBA they haven't filed any kind of countersuit, but their counter to it is, you may have matched the money offer, but you cannot match the eyeballs. This is what I call it. You don't have the subscriber base to get to that we're looking for out of Amazon, because it is clear that's the package they matched. They did not match the ESPN one, they couldn't, and they didn't match the NBC one. Again, they couldn't. They don't have a broadcast TV channel that's just anybody with an antenna can watch, like ABC or NBC. So they are in a spot where they're going to keep fighting it. My guess says that what will happen is nobody wants these numbers actually getting out there. So what will happen is it will be, hey, let's come to some sort of resolution. Maybe it is the NBA just pays them off to go away. Maybe the NBA carves out, all right, you want a package? We'll do a fourth package. You get this night. But I can't remember who it was now. Mark Stein has shared it a couple times. It's out there. If you Google it, you can look at it. Or if you subscribe to the Stein line, it was in one of his recent things. Somebody put together what the deals say, like what's on what nights. And there's not an open night right now. So they would have to kind of figure that out there. So, yeah, I really don't know where this goes if they want to go. A bunch of people have said hopefully find a way to keep the TNT guys. I get it, but Ernie Johnson has said he's not going to work anywhere else. Barkley initially was like, I'm not going to work anywhere else, but then was like, hey, if they want to pay me a lot of money, I'm open to talking, which says to me, like, all right, somebody just write them whatever the check is. If you want them and go. The big thing is going to be those guys, especially Barkley and Kenny Smith. Shaq pops up all over the place. Those two guys do not want to work like 3 nights a week or something. They're going to want to do probably their 1 night a week like they've been doing for years, then more if needed when we get into the postseason and other stuff. But yeah, it's we have not seen the end of it. That's for sure.
I can't find the graphic that was going around, because you're right, there was that graphic that broke down.
Yeah, I don't know
what nights. I want to say, I probably say, I'm pretty sure I saved it somewhere, but at this point, who knows? It's lost in my files somewhere. But yeah, I hadn't thought about the subscriber numbers having to be revealed, because that's something that the streaming companies tend to keep very, very quiet about, and they don't want that information out there. So that's interesting. I do hope, most people's concern is, of course, the TNT guys. I hope there's something that works for them to stick around, because they are great. They are a lot of fun. I usually have my own post-game show going while that's going on, so I don't get to see it all the time. But when I do, it's always fun to watch those guys. So hopefully something can be worked out there. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Oh.
Yeah, my thought with the TNT guys is always, if you take it as entertainment, then you're fine. If you're looking for in-depth, really basketball analysis, you're just going to find yourself angry. But you know what? Then they win too, because then you're still watching to get mad. So it kind of wins no matter what for them.
Matthew said, TNT studio guys, Robert Downey Jr. wasn't going to return to the MCU until they backed up the Brinks truck. That's true.
Good point.
That's true.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. There was pull this one up.
Whoops, sorry.
Raja says, could you guys say something about the German national team so far at the Olympics? Be interested to hear your opinion. Yeah, I think they've played well. They are, I could make a cheap German efficiency joke here, but they're very efficient. Like,
Mhm.
there's no other way to put it. They know what they want to run. A lot of those guys have played a lot together over the years. So it takes a little bit for them to regain that chemistry, but then they're ready to go. So there's there you can see it with those guys, and they kind of all know who they are, right? It's Dennis Schroeder is the leader. He's the on-ball playmaker. Franz Wagner does quite a bit of that. They have some shooters. Their bigs can all step out, shoot it. They play extremely physically. Their teams that play them will say often they're very annoying to play because there's a lot of clutch and grab, a lot of pushing, a lot of banging from guys like Mo Wagner and Daniel Tice and Voigtman. So we'll see where that all goes with them if that's good enough. But they've been very good so far at the Olympics. They're 2-0 with a blowout win over Japan, and then a comfortable win over Brazil. We'll say France this afternoon. That's a pretty big one for both teams because they're both 2-0. So that will decide who wins the group. Germany thus far has been far more impressive than France has. So we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I mean, the German team is always a lot of fun to watch. I'm always amazed at how much they get out of guys like Daniel Tice that are able to step in and play a big role and hit big shots in big moments. So they're certainly a team to watch here in this tournament. Let's go. Oh, somebody asked, did Rui get hurt? Yes.
Yeah, he did.
He's dealing with a calf injury. We don't know what it is. We just know it's a calf injury that he had an MRI. And the MRI did show an injury there. We don't know how severe it is, how severe it's not. Nothing on that, just that it was severe enough for him to not play against Brazil, and that he's not with the team. He's left. So that's all we know as of this point. And of course, hold your breath. Hopefully he's okay, because this was the danger going into the Olympics, that we're so close to training camps for the NBA starting up the end of September. If you have like a 6-week injury where you're off, you got to stay off of it for 6 weeks. You're going to be coming in a little bit behind heading into camp. So we'll see. But right now, all we know is that he had some type of calf injury, and it was enough to, in a knockout game, essentially, it was enough to keep him out of that game.
Yeah, and they just, in case anybody's wondering, officially out. They cannot advance now. They're currently the only team that is 0-3 at the Olympics. Everybody else has won at least one game. So Japan's Olympics run is over. So it's now Rui can just go rest up, heal up, and get ready for camp.
Yeah. The people asking about Sean, we already talked about that. Like, we talked about that on previous shows. We don't need to rehash over and over again. We move forward. But
this isn't even Sean's show. Sean
no, it's not. It's not.
Occasionally on Front Office Show. We always loved having him on.
Sure,
but
absolutely.
Yeah.
But we already did that. We don't need to continue to rehash or anything like that. Let's go.
I'm gonna go here. Does that affect the Grant trade? There's no Grant trade. The number of people I've seen that just automatically assumed that there is a trade happening for Jeremy Grant. There could be, but there isn't. It's not like it was like agreed to, and now it's like, oh, he's hurt, so now we're gonna have to back out of it. It could happen, but yeah, I don't think. I mean, who knows? Like, could it affect it? Yeah, but they wouldn't be acquiring Rui Hachimura. Trailblazers would be acquiring him a lot more as a contract than they would be as a player for right now. Not that they don't want him to play if they get him. Of course, they eventually would. But if he's out even until like November with a calf injury, they'd still do the trade. They wouldn't necessarily care.
Yeah. So it's not something that would undo any trade effort there or anything like that. But again, right now, there's rumors that that's something the Lakers have looked into, but they've looked into a lot of trades. There have been a number of guys they've tried to talk trades for. So I don't know that it necessarily changes any type of a trade or potential trade before the season starts. And once again, we don't know the severity of the injury at this point either. What's that?
Everybody wants to know what happened with Sean. Sean moved on for other opportunities. Like, right? As far as
that's it.
Understand. That's it. Like, it's not, it's not dead. He's not tied up in the basement. He's not, we're not holding him. He's not asleep. Like, he's just he moved on to do other stuff. He's covered. I saw he was talking about it on Twitter the other day himself. Like, that's
It's
guys, that's
not
the
a big
nature of
deal,
this
guys.
business. Yeah,
Yep.
people move all the time around stuff, except Trevor and I. We're forever linked. We'll be here
Forever. There we
until
go.
the end of time. So
All right. Let's see. We'll do one more here before we call it a weekend and head on out there.
this
Um,
isn't a question, but this is exactly right. As a Blazers fan, I'm definitely more interested than the picks, than the players coming back in a Grant trade. Rui injury changes almost nothing for me. Yeah.
yep.
From the Portland
There you
side, that's exactly it. You want the picks. Whoops. I mean, no, but and I didn't mean to click on that, but no, we wouldn't. But he put the
But still,
lotion on,
he's not.
right? Puts it in the basket.
Let's go here. Thoughts on what the Jazz do with Lauri? Is this the year they commit to a real tank? I think that Danny Ainge is still sitting in a darkened room doing the Mr. Burns excellent, and just letting the offers come to him. Again, the clock is ticking, so to speak. August 6th approaches. We know that's an important date in all of this. I think we will have resolution one way or another there, and then maybe that opens some things up on the trade market. But I do think the Jazz right now, if I'm Utah, I'm listening to offers. If I'm not blown away, I don't feel some great urgency to move him. So
Yep.
I've got to be really impressed with an offer. Otherwise, I just say, you know what? Let's do an extension. Let's get that done, and be happy with that. And then who knows? Maybe something comes up before the trade deadline. And if not, I know he's not like 23 or something like that, but he's still young enough to where he's going to retain value for a well into the future. So I'm not in any hurry to do anything here. If I'm Utah, I'm sitting back and letting the offers come in. And if somebody really blows me away, okay, then maybe we make a move.
Yeah, at this point, I would, if I'm the Jazz, if we're gonna do the renegotiation and extension, I want it done on August 6th, the day he's eligible, because I want the option to be able to trade him by the time we get to the trade deadline. If I'm Lauri Markkanen and I'm doing that, I'd probably say, I'll sign it on the 7th or the 8th or whenever.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be traded. I'm going to be content to just stay. So I think right now we're in a spot where it is just he has no reason to rush into anything. All these stuff is here. The only real deadline for the Jazz is they have to get to the salary floor by the start of the season. So that's kind of the real deadline. The pseudo deadline is August 6th, right? That's the date we'll all be watching. But I don't know that anything happens between now and then. A couple people have asked, can another team renegotiate and extend him? They can't, because you have to have cap space to be able to do that. And nobody else is going to have that. And if he's traded, he's bound by the extend and trade rules on how much he could be extended by. So we'd be in a spot where it just gets really complicated. So if another team is trading for him, they are probably more in a place of, let's let this go to free agency next summer, and then we'll re-sign him there to the big deal, because extending him is not going to be enough to get him there. Even if you let the timing pass for the extend and trade and then try to extend him, you're only bumping him up to roughly, 25-ish million or so. And that's not nearly enough. Like that's not going to be enough to get it done. So that's where, I think if I'm Lauri Markkanen, I'm content to just let it play out a little bit. And if I'm the Jazz, I just want to be, let's kind of see where things fall. We don't need to rush or anything like that.
Yeah. And that's where we're at right now with this situation. Again, we'll keep an eye on things as we get close to that August 6th date. Maybe he signs a deal a little bit after that, and then he's not eligible to get moves this season. But it seems like the Jazz are playing this one correctly right now, which is not a surprise. Not a surprise. I know this Danny Ainge, he's in a good spot. No matter what, I think that's the biggest thing. No matter what happens here for Utah, just about it's good, right? There's positives coming for Utah. Either way, you sign him, you don't, you trade him, whatever. There's good stuff coming here for the Jazz.
Yeah, and they can sign him and see how the season falls. Maybe they're a lot better than anybody thought, and they're in the race for a playoff spot, or maybe they're bad anyway, even with him. And then you have him plus draft picks, plus a bunch of young kids, plus 900 million more draft picks coming, and you're like, hey, let's build this thing on the fly around Markkanen. So, they'll be fine. Like, I get it. For other teams are getting a little like, what is happening? Like we want to know. And this is a great comment you pulled up from Apple. Lauri seems like he wants to stay. Absolutely. I think he does. you'll want to stay in Utah. So that's a good thing too. Why,
Sure.
if you have a good player who wants to stay, you could keep them. And they have a lot of that flexibility with that renegotiation extend rather, where they can do a lot of different things. So I'm very curious to see how this one plays out. But we got 4 more days to wait until he's actually eligible, and then everything will pick up from there. And if we don't get that Woj bomb on the 6th, a lot of people are going to be wondering this. If we don't get it, we may get the Woj bomb that's not a real bomb, because he comes back and says something along the lines of there'll be no extension done, right? Like he's not going to extend today or whatever it may be. So we'll all be watching on the 6th one way or another.
All right. I think that's a good place to wrap up the show. Thank you, everybody, for joining on a Friday. We head out to the weekend. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Of course, if there's any big NBA news or something happens, we'll be back here and we'll break it down over the weekend. But otherwise, we'll see everybody on Monday. I'll be over on Lakers Nation at 2:00 Pacific time, so come join us over there. Till then, see ya and stay safe.